that I'm gonna give you a guideline today and a little bit of interactive presentation. We will make an interactive presentation, hopefully. And then the next time, tomorrow is our trip, and the day after tomorrow, we will do the field work, so you will be able to create a little bit of design, but something very small and specific. So if you take that system and stages, you can apply it to your own garden. That's the plan. So we will make, hopefully, fruit tree guilds, pond, raised beds, and we will have some creative workshops as well. But yeah, I just really want you to get some practical experiences, because that was what I was lacking on my courses, so I had to learn it by myself. Before I started, I would like you to introduce yourself, because you were not here yesterday and I still don't know your name.
Yeah, sure. Sorry, I haven't said hello to all of you yet. So my name is Moana. I come from Czech Republic.
Moana, like the Disney movie Moana? That's so cool! Yeah. I didn't know that it's a real name.
Yeah.
Okay.
It is. It means ocean.
Yes.
That's why
they changed the French.
Yeah. So that's why she's able to talk to the ocean. And yes, I come from Czech Republic, and I don't know, what else should I say?
Can you talk to the ocean?
I feel some connection.
Of course, everyone can, but can you understand or talking to you?
What do you do at home and why are you here?
Sorry?
What do you do at home and why are you here?
Well, I've finished my studies last year. I was studying agroforestry.
Nice.
And currently I work on a very interesting biochar project that we will talk later, I guess. And I came because I was super excited about the topic, of course, because that's what I would like to do and what I would like to focus on. And and all these international meeting with the people who has the same feelings and interests are always very enriching. So I was hoping that I could meet more people and connect somehow in this way.
Oh, so cool! Thank you. Welcome.
And nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you as well. And I wasn't here yesterday, guys, but can someone summarize me? What's your expectations?
You can read it.
Actually, is everyone familiar with the topic here? So what we are gonna do: gardening, farming, sustainable farming. Is everyone familiar? Who is here only for holiday?
I know what it's forest gardening and so on. I'm doing it, and I was really exhausted before I came here, so I came here.
Okay, then you can just chill in a hammock.
No, I will work.
Okay, good. Thank you. So, okay, I would like to ask you, actually, to form teams, you don't need to move. Because I have no clue that how much you know about food forest and forest gardens. So we'll do a little bit of brainstorming. You can be in 5 people, so you don't need to move around. You can form the teams there. I'm going to give you a big paper, and you can put in the middle the food forest, and everything every word, everything that pops up in your mind you can put down on the paper what a food forest is. Like, what is your idea about it? What the forest garden is. Okay? So it can be, I have some guiding questions like, what does it contain? Or even specific species, animals, whatever, plants. What does it mean for you? What does it good for? Okay? So everything that comes up, then you can just write it down. And you can discuss it in the groups. And it's going to take like 15-20 minutes, so you can go into details. Okay, so I'm going to give you the the paper, so you don't need to stand up because you seem very tired, okay? So it's okay, I can move around, no problem.
Why we are giving speech? Can I ask something?
Yes, of course.
Well, in my mind is the following picture. When we say perma garden and permaculture forest garden, perma forest, I think that there could be two kinds of perma forest, let's say. One kind of permaforest is the
put it on the paper, huh?
You can put it down on the paper, yes. But everything that if you think that it's two, like two different things, everything. That's the main point. So we can clarify it afterwards. Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yes. No problem, no problem. That's extremely best.
So,
Yes. Let's
well, what is the best paper?
Is it going to be large?
And how many have been in group? Just three. Three?
You sure?
I avoid it.
Yeah, like this.
Can you find? Yes, please.
Yeah?
So it's like categories. We can be here. You can join your group? Yes, we can. Thank you.
Right on.
Where can you find food forests? So everything, okay, everything, all the aspects and perspective, even like inside, how do you feel in a food forest if you have an idea about it, everything. All the functions, feelings.
Yes. And like this, you'll spend half of the time for.
Do you even know something about forest garden?
Of course. I'm a social anthropologist. I know anything about everything. At least a living.
Traditional gardening.
Yeah, like in Indonesia or in Amazonia, they were like
because they are growing like
Yeah, exactly.
That is a mountain.
Which would be about dedicated to
Okay.
From rocks to the from roots to the
Well, it depends on what you want to do. It's relevant to plan it.
We need to create associations with forest gardening. Yes. So I'm not sure.
So, what comes to your mind?
Forest gardening.
For me, it comes harmony.
Yes. Write it down.
I will be the blue one.
no breakdown, but
I mean that if you want permaforest you create to look and to be more sustainable like natural one, we will not produce as much fruit and
Integration.
circle economy?
Yes.
What do you mean?
I don't know if it's the right term, but it's when everything is a circle within the ecosystem and
Circular economy.
yeah, circular.
Something that is like a cycle.
Yeah.
We can also write cycles.
You know those? You know those? Yeah.
So there's no reason to repeat because I don't understand the first time or second time.
I hope.
like
What else? Ticks. But they're not very
Low maintenance. I will write you low maintenance.
You're gonna be scared. I put a mistake anyway. So. Are you
Main. How do you write main? No.
Well, now even I would shit my pants. But you came here for embarrassment. Yeah. It's also like a... Okay, I will choose another color. Now, for me, it's like a partnership between plants and trees.
De mi a ami eszedbe jut arról, hogy mi lehet az.
Trees and plants.
Amit te szerinted, amit az mi?
And
Water. Can you write also hummus? Hummus? Yeah. No. Like white.
So, and this is the how you say well, you develop some soil, and it's part of it. Because when you what's in the soil, so I was thinking maybe that's
also because there are trees, so it's like protected from erosion, and it's also like more humid maybe because like trees they offer shade.
On the paper, okay? So you can still work on it for 5 minutes.
Can make competition. They will be trying to say Hungarian word, and you will have me randomly put together. Előbb akartál előre.
Az a fajta. A lendrész az a fajta.
Igen? Nem
tájfajta. Green. Helyről. Érdekeled a helyről. Helye alatt. Nem vagyok olyan.
Who wanna start? Which group? Volunteers. Okay, Nico, go for it.
Okay, our group is first. Should we go there?
You can just stand up at your place.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna close the other side of this.
Whoa. Wow. Food forest. Whoa. Utopia.
Tomato. A kedvenc.
Potato. Broccoli.
So you need, everyone needs to summarize what they think what a food forest is. So everything that you wrote down, just summarize it. You don't need to say every single thing, but you think that it's important or different than the other group. So that can contribute to the previous one. So you start. So you
okay. So this is. I just came up with another word to summarize everything we wrote, and it's a source. So we wrote so many things I can't even begin to like read them out loud. But I can summarize it with a source because I guess what I can say is that it's like the themes are like sustainability, connection, symbiosis, harmony, clean and pure. Like we believe, like we discovered through the process that it's everything, like goodness. It's everything good, and if we have this, it's like the basis of everything else that exists. And it's the best base that we can have to create like an utopic world.
Very nice. Thank you very much. I really like that you said source.
Yes, I think I'm gonna write it now.
Okay, who wanna carry on? Okay, Julia.
Oda se figyelsz, te.
Okay, so guys, let's listen to the other group.
I studied public relations for 4 years.
So we just brainstormed a few words that came to everyone's minds around forest gardening, and we can see some of them here. We're thinking about ecosystem, permaculture, coexisting in it, not only us, but also the animals, the plants.
Also autonomy and self-sustainability, and also learning from the nature and regeneration of the nature and of us as well. Also, it's very important to leave nature grow on its own rhythm and really leave it grow naturally without additives, and it's more healthy this way.
Natural fertilizers.
Yeah.
And creating a circular economy in the system, that everything feeds from other parts that are not used anymore.
And of course, an eco-community, which also includes food and our own energy, like maybe solar energy. And oh yes, of course, a watering system that might come from rain or from other ponds or rivers, and permaculture, of course.
And of course, we wrote like we don't know.
We don't know, it's in quotation marks, because we would like to know, we would like to learn, but we also know a few stuff.
Oh, that's so good that you left some empty space for that. You can feel it unmuted. Thank you very much. Actually, I really like here that you said that regenerative, because I think that's very important as well. And so for me, the two words was source here and regenerative here that stick to my mind. Okay, next group. Come on.
Igen,
So we wrote everything about what you know about the forest garden. We think forest garden is working with the nature, not against the nature, because the land, the natural way to a land is like with trees or grass or with bushes, and it's more vertical than just the ground. And it's about input and output. With forest garden you have to do a little input and you can get out lots of things. It's aesthetically can be beautiful. Also it works with climate change, because we cover the ground and the trees will give shade. Fruit trees is also a good choice, because it gives a wide range of source, like it gives shade, gives fruits. You can do so much thing with fruit. Yeah.
Oh, thank you very much. It was actually very good to summarize for everyone, so you almost covered everything already. Okay, so the next group.
So when we thought about forest gardening, what we first thought was the development of habitat for the creatures which live in, but the animals would have some places. There need to be some plants, and plants need a relationship between each other and between us people which plants there. We also thought that when there is the relationship between plants and us, there need to be also relationship between plants and the soil, and there are several types of such a relationship. Between us and the soil, there is a relationship of forest gardening and no-tilled method with no digging, and between the relationship of the trees and the soil, there is this nutrition development. And then there are minor stuff. There can be like some resting places for insects, which is connection between somewhere between. And also about the soil, there is important the moisture of the soil and the evaporation prevention. Did I not mention something?
I think it was really
I would add maybe that it's like a traditional way of agriculture in many parts of the world, like in the tropical areas. So it's not something new, but it's something which is working already.
Oh.
And then it's perfect.
Yeah. Thank you. I really like that you mentioned the relationships, the different kind of relationships, and also you already mentioned everyone the cycles, the natural cycles in the food forest, so that was really good. Okay, last group.
A lot has been already said. We just want to emphasize a few more things that may not have been. So interdependence and interconnection of the ecosystem, biodiversity and living space for animals, sustainability, also low maintenance and being a lazy gardener, and there are some environmental services that we get from our garden, like clean water, clean air and aesthetics. Also, it's a nice hobby. What else?
Yeah, it's a therapy for our minds.
Yeah, also there are different layers, vertical layers that already has been said before. Organic nutrients, no pesticides.
And so many gifts we can, we were thinking about, like eggs, honey, fruit, vegetables.
Yeah, and then of course food production, that's the aesthetics.
Yeah. So happy mind, happy belly. And therapy through mushrooms.
Yes. That's a good idea. Thank you very much, guys. So actually, I think you really summarized most of the stuff. Yes.
Can I have a question? Tájfajta, az a heirloom or land races?
Tájfajta. Local, native,
feral.
I don't know. Like,
A feral az biztos nem, de akkor lehet mindkettőt lehet használni. Okay.
Even in English is not clear the separation between heirloom and land races.
In Hungary we have laws for it, but just with Hungarian words. So like heirlooms and land races, like it's a regional thing. You know, you can't put something into from this side from the country to the other side because it's not livable. But here it's resistant for, and it's okay for it.
Yeah, actually we will talk about it, about the fruit trees and everything, because I don't know, guys, we are almost from the same region, like the same climate, except Greece. Okay. So, but our fruit trees. So, what do you think? Which fruit tree that we use today is actually native in this region? In Eastern Europe, in Hungary. So, what did you say?
Walnut.
No.
It's natural here.
No. No. It's what is
cherry.
So, cherry.
Is
the
natural
one.
here. Yeah.
Natural.
Apple is not. Walnut is not. Yeah.
No. No.
Grapes.
No.
No grapes.
No grapes here. It
Okay,
was
but cherry was
native
right.
here.
Pear?
I don't know English. That one is a wild one, but it's not breeded, not nemesített. So I mean that, for example, we have wild apples in the forests, but the apples that we eat, the species that we can find in the gardens that we actually eat, are not closely related, are not coming from our wild apples. All the apples, pears, peach, everything are coming from Asia and Middle Asia and Northern America, but not from here. So there is only like, I think I collect the blackberries, chestnut are coming from the wild, gesztenye, ribizli, currants.
Strawberries maybe.
Strawberries, maybe yes, because of the white versions.
And raspberries.
Raspberries, the berries.
Yeah, the berries.
Hazelnuts, yes, hazelnut is coming, is native as well. Which one? I don't know that.
This Bulgaria is kind of fruit which you are harvesting in the winter.
It's one what it needs to be.
Nashpoya, yes, nashpoya, that's, yes. The birch, no. Yeah, it's coming from a lot of different languages. so I'm even struggling with switching between English. No.
Plum.
Plum, no. So basically only the hazelnut, chestnut, cherry, and the berries.
And wild roses?
Wild roses?
Like those small red.
Csipkebogyó. They are wild ones. So they are actually naturally found here, native here. Yes, the berry types are here. But all the other ones that we use, and the vegetables as well, like tomatoes, potato, zucchini, cucumber, nothing is from here. Nothing is native. So mulberry, that's native. You are right, that's native. Okay. So mulberry is you know, like it's like the sweet, very sweet fruit. Little bit looks like the shape of this and tastes like strawberry. We call it strawberry tree. It can be white or red.
Yeah, exactly this one.
Yes, it's mulberry in English. It's mulberry in English.
Recognize it as tiny wine grape.
Yes, exactly. So that one is native as well. But that's it basically.
And what about chips in Greece, for example?
In Greece, I have no clue. Maybe for the Greek night, I would be actually curious, like if you could collect some like native. That you probably think that it's native for your region, but maybe it's not, because for us, apple and pear, we would think like, oh, of course it's a native, but it's not. So it's so you can do some research. I don't know. Thank you very much. Okay, so I was brainstorming as well.
Mostly for
Okay, so I think you said all the things probably, but just to quickly going through it. So I created a definition for myself in one sentence. If I have to define what a food forest or forest garden means, or what it is, I would say it's a complex food production system which mimics the natural ecosystem's cycles. Is it understandable? Yes, Reka.
Why we call it food forest when we don't only use it for food?
So we don't only use it for food, but the main purpose why it was created, it's a tool. It's a tool like how field gardening is. Now I'm going to break it down because there is usually there is a chaos in definitions like permaculture or other ecological gardening. What's the difference between the food forest or forest gardening and permaculture gardening? So there is usually a chaos, and actually the professional ones who create the systems have like confusion as well. So they cannot define it either.
Yeah, because
so
I thought they make it a forest garden because it's not only it's coming from because it's not the only purpose for food. This is the first system, but the purpose not only food.
Well, they had to name it somehow. But they have a lot of functions. So I collected actually that okay, I don't remember if anyone said, but it mostly contains perennials. That's the main goal, because if you have perennial plants, then it's an all year round living space for animals. Also, you don't disturb the soil life, so it's much better for nature. And also, you don't have work with it, so it's more self-sustaining. Yes.
What does it mean, perennial?
Perennial is annual vegetables that you have it just for a year, one summer, and perennials in multiples. So it's like trees and shrubs and all these like grass, strawberry, yes. So mostly perennials, fruits, vegetables as well. And vegetables are not very common yet, but they are getting very popular in Hungary as well. To look for seeds which are perennial vegetables, like spinach, for example, or different kind of lettuce. Yes.
So does a food forest, by definition, have to be out in the open, or can it be like closed, like in what is it called?
Greenhouse.
Greenhouse, yes.
Greenhouse, like inside. You mean inside? You can create a food forest inside as well. So we will get to that point. Okay, in 1 second. So. Just going through the main things, so the food chain, the natural cycles that we were mentioning, self-sustaining. So it basically mimics the natural forest. So in the morning, when we went to the natural forest nearby, you could see that there are different layers. It seems chaotic, but everything is balanced. So all the nutrition, the branches, the leaves that are on the ground are getting into the soil. The microorganisms, worms, snails, everything just decompose it, and then it's getting back to the plants, grows again, animals eat it, and you understand. So it goes around. I have a good picture for that as well. Okay, the other thing that I collected, maybe nobody said that, I can't remember, but pollution reduction. So if it's in a city or a town, then it can create a much cleaner air. It also consumes carbon dioxide, so it cleans the air. Okay, effect on community and community work, I think someone said that it can create a good community life. Where it can be, and now I'm getting to that point, so it can be in cities, villages, farms, greenhouses, balconies, everywhere, because the food forest means that you have the different, so it just mimics the cycles that you can find in nature, but it can be anywhere. So if you have the 7 layers, I'm going to show on the picture, usually it has 7 layers in a balanced system, then it can be everywhere. It can be on a balcony as well. If you have like a bigger pot, you can plant like garlic, undercover layer, something that goes around the tree. So yeah, it can be everywhere. They are actually really good balcony jungles, like there are people who just professionals at that. Okay, so, and I wrote down, I don't know if everyone can see, but a food forest doesn't only contain the plants and animals, but water, and water cycle is very important as well. So it can contain lakes, river, bog, and I wrote down raised beds here, because now we are coming to the definition between like permaculture and so on. So is everyone familiar with permaculture?
No.
No. Hands up if you don't know. You don't really know what permaculture is. Okay, so I'm gonna turn on the okay. So permaculture, just a couple of sentences, because I think most of the people are familiar with it. And we are focusing on the food forests right now. Maybe like this is better. Yeah. I'm gonna read it if you cannot really see. Yeah, but it's not gonna. Maybe I'm bringing a little bit closer. Okay, wait. Yeah, I think it's gonna be like this now. But basically, permaculture is coming from two words: permanent agriculture, and it's not a new thing. What I really like about permaculture, that it's covering all the different kind of tools, techniques that are related to sustainable or regenerative agriculture, gardening, farming. So, for example, the no-tilled gardening is one tool, or agroforestry, another tool or technique, or food forest is another technique. So it's like an umbrella that covers all these kind of tools and techniques. So this kind of method was coming from Bill Mollison because he created a system that everyone can understand and replicate in their own climate, in their own region. So it's not that chaotic that a natural gardening actually requires, because if you go into the nature and you see a forest, which is the most complex system that you can find out in the nature, you won't be able to understand the relationships because it's so complex. So he put it into the system and simplified it, so you can actually build up this system in your garden. Your forest, if you work on it, will never be that complex than the natural systems, because it's just so complex that we still don't understand all the relationships. Like one fingernail of soil contains millions of microorganisms, and we still don't know how each of these microorganisms affect the plant and the environment. So it's just so complex that it's impossible to keep up and follow everything. So this is why, for example, aquaponic system, I'm sure that some of you already heard about that, like when you don't use soil, you just put, like, you grow vegetables in water. It can be a good solution in some countries when they struggle with water, where we have good soil, like here and in Eastern Europe generally. Personally, and how I learned from people, it's not really recommended, because the soil is so complex that, and so many things are there that create that plant and that fruit, that water and some added nutrients from the air and added nutrients to the water just cannot replicate it completely. And it's gonna, this is why from a monoculture and from a conventional agriculture, a lot of things that you can find in the supermarket feels empty, like no taste. Like tomatoes that you buy, it's just watery. I don't like it personally. So Bill Mollison created permaculture because he was an ecologist in Australia, and he realized that we put a lot of energy and effort to create food, and actually we don't need to do that. We can just replicate and mimic what nature already offers to us. Why do we put so much effort if it just works by itself? It can be self-sustaining. And his big inspiration was actually Masanobu Fukuoka. I already talked about it with some of you. So he was a Japanese guy who, during the second, I think he lived around the Second World War, or later, a little bit, 1930s, and he went to the university and followed the conventional, like, higher class Japanese people's life, and he realized that he doesn't like cities, so he moved back home. And they had a farmland, and he spent decades of observation of his land. The tractors and the machines just came to the country during that time, after the Second World War. So before that, they were just following the traditional agriculture. And then, when the machines came, he didn't really like that, because he was sitting at the He has a book, by the way, The One Straw Revolution. He wrote down his experiments and his teachings in a book. So he was sitting at the house and he was just mesmerized by the landscape and thinking that, oh, why is it that hard to produce food? Like, it shouldn't be that hard. I have no time for anything. It's too hard. I just want to sit here, do nothing, being a lazy gardener. I want to be a lazy gardener. So he spent with that decades of just observing it. Observe everything. And he was the first one that was actually a very big thing that time as well, who produced rice without water. Because rice is produced, I'm sure that if you have seen rice fields, it's in water all the time. So he produced rice with other companion plants without water, and that was nobody wanted to believe that. And he started to understand how his land works. But for that he needed decades. So the problem with Fukuoka's system, that thinking and that method only works on his land. because it's just so specific to his microclimate and his soil and his plants and everything. So you cannot really replicate that. You need to do the same thing if you want to have the same efficiency. So what other people started to do, like Bill Mollison, that collected his basic philosophies and principles of these kind of people and put it together in a system that everyone can replicate and build upon it. So you still need a lot of observation. Permaculture is has a principle that 100 hours of observing and 1 hour of doing. So you don't do the extra work, you think. You don't work hard, you just think beforehand. And that's using common sense. Also, we have now better technology, of course, so we have the drones, the lasers, so the computers make our life much easier, so we can measure everything, and we don't need to experiment, oh, how big that tree is gonna grow, okay, how much shade it's gonna give us, how much rain do we get on this land, because we have all this information on the computer. So it's much easier now. And this is what I like, because it's the very traditional way of agriculture and gardening with the modern technologies and modern way of thinking and common sense. So it's amazing, I think. So it's really like it. Yes.
And for me there is one important point.
Yeah.
And that this perma part, it's refusing the fossil fuels.
Yes.
So it's, because using the modern technologies, it's also using fossil fuels, which is modern technology. But this is important to us, it's not just about the high tech.
Yes.
But a little bit about low tech or downshifting and etc.
Yeah.
But this is just concept and it has to be adapted to every setting, especially.
Yeah. And I think a lot. You also mentioned that, for example, in modern agriculture, we know that there is monoculture. I think we all know that it's not good because it's just not good for the ecosystem. When you go out, you don't see only wheat everywhere, or you don't see only sunflowers. You see dense and lushy and bushy hundreds, thousands of different types of plants and insects and animals and everything. And that's the healthy, balanced way of gardening as well. At least this is what we try to mimic. Of course, it's going to be much more simplified, but we already have some information that we can use in our garden. So this is what we are going to do here. So the permaculture has three main principles: the fair share, people care, and earth care. You can check out this if you are not familiar with it everywhere on the internet. Just Google it. Okay. So it's all about being a good person. Okay, so it's a philosophy, but I think all religions and philosophies teach the same thing. So yeah, these are the same things that take care of everyone and everything, basically. Okay, so any questions about food forests right now? No. Okay, so carry on. I'm checking the next one. Here you can see the 7 layers that you can find in an ideal forest, like a natural forest, and an ideal food forest. So on this picture, I can move it so you can see. Can you see? It's actually heavier than you would think. So there is a canopy layer that's usually like the largest fruit tree in your garden. I'm gonna show my food forest, and we will have examples here and then as well. So for example, mulberry is my, like aperfa, is my biggest tree and tallest tree in the garden, or will be, still small. Or
Canopy, right?
Sorry?
Your canopy is this
yeah, there's canopy, yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, the second one is the low tree layer that can be dwarf trees, for example, apple tree, pear, plum, and everything that's on the next layer. So there is a big one that can be a companion plant, then the fruit trees. Then you can see the shrub layer. Usually these are different kind of berry bushes, or it's also a companion plant that doesn't produce food. We will talk about companion planting. Who is not familiar with companion planting? Okay, we will get there. Okay, so just shortly, companion planting is when you plant together plants which are beneficial to each other. They live in symbiotic relationships, so they help each other in a way. Okay, the next one is the herbaceous layer, light saru, flowers, herbs and vegetables. Then root layer, fungi, very important actually, we will get there, and root vegetables, carrots, radish and onions. Okay, so ground cover, that can be like wood sorrel, that can be strawberries, so whatever that is slow, and they have roots on the surface of the soil and covers the bare soil. And we have the vertical layer that can run up on the trees, and that can be grapes, kiwi, maracuya, whatever. Okay, depends on your climate. And I have another picture of this. Okay, so we already discussed this, but this actually represents the life of a tree or a food forest, like the living web that you can see, that how the rain drops on the leaves, get into the soil. The mushrooms, how the mushrooms communicates with the trees and other living plants, giving nutrition to everything all around them. So yeah, it's just the complexity. I'm not gonna read that now because we already discussed that. And here just the mushrooms and the fungi. So I don't know how much you know about the fungi system under the soil, but it's actually one of the most mesmerizing things, and they just discovered it recently, not so long time ago, like in scientific experiments and researches, that how much role they have in a natural system. The mushrooms, they are probably the most important parts of the forests. They eat the dead trees, the dead living creatures, and they just transform the nutrients to plants, trees, in a way that they can absorb the nutrients, and they also communicate with each other, and they help the communication, the trees. So they help everything over there, and recently they do all the massive work in the forest. Okay.
Now that more than 30% of the mass that you take over is mycelium.
Yes, that's amazing.
And actually the mushroom is the fruit of the mycelium.
Okay, I didn't know that is the fruit of the mycelium that comes up from there. Yeah, and so I would recommend a Netflix documentary, if you haven't watched it yet. It's about
Fantastic fungi.
Yes, exactly, fantastic fungi. I think it's a really good documentary, and it's a lot about the psychedelics as well.
Yeah.
Psychedelic mushrooms, and it's
Are we going to try?
Yeah, I mean. I don't have it here, but if anyone has, I'm not going to tell anyone here, so it can be in the camera. So yeah, if you have one, let me know. Spores, we can just, it's wet anyways, rainy weather, we can produce more. Okay, it's a very small one. 1 second.
You can zoom up.
Yeah, I think it's not gonna be.
It's super.
Yeah, it's actually better to okay. So it's an example. if you have a fruit tree, this is, I'm gonna just check it out now because I have a complete example about that. So, this is what we are gonna build here as well. Okay, this is one of the main goals of our workshops. To build a fruit tree guild. And the main part of it, the soil building and the companion planting. And you will figure out what we are gonna put together and plant together. This one is an example. So this one can be an apple tree in the middle. And if you have an apple tree, I actually collected some, yes. If you have a fruit tree, like an apple tree, you need a couple of companion plants, and you can take notes because I didn't right now, but here you can find. So they are the nitrogen fixer plants that we plant beside the fruit tree. Does anyone know what a nitrogen fixer plant means? Yes?
I have to tell them.
Sorry?
I don't want to tell them, but I know what it is.
But you can tell, yes.
That's why I didn't raise my hands.
It fixes the nitrogen in the soil, so the other plants can grow because they can't fix the nitrogen, and it's in the soil. How is it? It's on their own. The nitrogen is its own on the dirt, and the plants can't grow and can't take it. And this nitrogen fixation plant, it's with
the roots on
yeah, it has a
in
the roots they have fungi, and they make a small like gum balls, and they fixate the nitrogen.
So actually, it's almost right. Just a little bit of correction. So all the plants takes the nitrogen, and they are keeping the nitrogen. It's the most important element that the plant needs. So for example, when you are doing a conventional agriculture, that's the problem that we have. The fertilizer that they use, the artificial one, that's nitrogen. And does anyone know why these fertilizers are bad, like around the world, that we use, these artificial fertilizers?
Because it goes to the water.
Sorry?
It goes to the water.
Yes, and why is it bad that it goes to the water?
Because it causes the water flowers. And like
you lose oxygen in the water.
Yes, and why? Why do you lose the oxygen because of the nitrogen? Why? How?
It will be NO.
Because bacteria, they need oxygen for the composition of nitrogen.
Yeah, almost there. So there is one thing that grows very well when there is a very nutritious water that is full of nitrogen. What is that? Algae. Yes. And algae takes the oxygen out of the water, so the other living creatures suffocate. So they die. So this creates actually, there are huge problems around the world, because in the oceans, for example, there is the Mexican Bay, the Mississippi River ends up there. At the delta, there is a huge dead zone. And what it means, it's full of algae, and no fish, no corals, everything dies. And
algae? What is this algae?
Algae is that green thing that you can see in ponds and lakes. But it's not seaweed. It's algae. It's algae. It's not. No. It's different. It's that slimy thing that nobody likes in the water or in the pond.
There is like this. Yes. Okay.
So if it's if there's too much sunlight and too much nutrition in the water, algae just blooms. And the problem is that if it's a small amount, that there is no problem. If there is a big amount, then it takes the oxygen from everything else. So all the surroundings die. And this creates huge dead zones in the oceans and seas. And this is one of the main reasons why all the living ocean life is dying close to the rivers. when they enter in the sweet water enters, because from the huge agricultural lands, these artificial nitrogen gets into the water, into the soil, and then it gets into the ocean. And actually, in Pécs, right now, I don't know how familiar you are with the water sources in the Mecsek. There is I don't know if you have been to Tettye in Pécs. It's a very beautiful area, and we have a lot of springs, and you can and you know on the street where you can drink from. So you know this blue, how do you say that, the taps, the blue taps, and you can drink from it. It's coming from the soil, and we had a lot of them, and actually they started to close them one by one because there was too much nitrogen in it, and it's not drinkable anymore. So yeah, it's getting a big problem. So we have less soil water anyways because of the very dry summers and droughts. We are losing the water, and because of the bad water management system that we have generally around the world, in the modern world, Western world, and then even that small amount of water get poisoned. So yeah, it's not a good tendency.
There's another problem with like artificial nitrogen fertilizer. It's the way how it's produced. This is produced from the air actually, with using a lot of energy. So there's like a huge carbon footprint because you need a lot of energy for making this like nitrogen, which you can get from compost or from shit.
Yes, it's actually with yeah, you are right, and it's actually with everything that we create in conventional agriculture and in our modern world, that everything is has a cost. So when you produce something, you use other sources and other resources, and we are getting back to the nitrogen fixing plants. So these plants are actually our natural fertilizers because they are able to soak the nitrogen out of the air and keep it in their roots. And then the bacteria on their roots transform it in a way that other plants around can take it as well. So if you plant, for example, now I'm gonna tell you beans. Okay, I don't wanna, because here you will do the observation here, and you will find a lot of interesting plants and nitrogen fixers as well. And then now it's in my mind.
They are mostly shrubs and bushes.
It can be anything, tree, anything.
Okay.
So for example, mulberry tree is a nitrogen fixer. So this is why I chose it as in the middle of my garden and as a main page, because it's large and nitrogen fixer.
The rose bush?
Rose bush?
Roses, yeah.
No.
Actually, you can discover the plant which is like doing this if you will smash the leaves a little bit in the hand, and it smells like a peas, like green peas.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that. That's so cool.
The whole same family, like green peas.
Yes.
And,
in Hungarian, hüvelyesek. I don't know. And pillangós virágúak. These are the families that, for example, beans and peas belong to. So in the gardening, when people are more conscious and they follow ecological gardening, they use beans and peas to act before they plant anything in their soil to boost the soil life and put nitrogen in it, and the next year or later on they plant other stuff there. So they use it as a fertilizer. So it's very cool. So we need, if we have a main plant, we put a nitrogen fixer beside it, and then there is another important one, the dynamic accumulator. Does anyone know what it means? Yes.
The dynamic accumulator, from what I know or what I understand, is a plant that usually has a deep root system, so it's able to take up the nutrients that are available really deep down in the soil, and they take it up and like save it in their biomass, in their tissues, in their leaves, etc. So if we like cut it, for example, and just leave it down on the ground and it decomposes, it makes it, these nutrients, it makes it available to the other plants. So we can use it as a mulch or as additional part to the compost as well. So it like brings us the nutrients that are pretty rare because they are deep. They take it up for us.
Perfect. Yeah, that's what it is.
Nice.
Thank you very much. So yeah, exactly. So we have one plant that goes that has a root that goes deep down into the soil, and because no other plants go down that deep, it's still in a good circumstances, still has some nutrients, and then it can collect it, bring it up to the surface. You can chop the leaves, for example, rhubarb has big leaves full of nutrients because the root is going down, bring the nutrition up, chop it, and just use it as a mulch around the plants.
Actually, like this technique is also called the chop and drop.
Yes.
Okay, chop it and drop it.
Yes, exactly. Chop and drop method. And this is the dynamic accumulator. Okay? And we have pollinators. I think that's obvious. So you need some flowers to attract bees. So if you have more bees around the fruit tree, the flowers are getting more fruits. That's the concept, common sense. Okay? What do we have? Pest repellents. So these can be different kind of flowers again, or onions, garlic. They are usually the best pest repellents. It can be insects. It can be different kind of microorganisms. It can be fungi, fungal diseases that we don't want in our garden, or that can affect our apple tree or fruit tree. So onions, garlic are always good solutions, but they are flowers as well. And it's only about research. Like this is all about that you do your research and what companion planting is good for that tree. Basically that's it. Okay, and we have the ground cover mulch. That can be anything. You can bring it into your garden, and you can also grow your mulch and ground cover. That can be, for example, the strawberries. In my food forest, that's the strawberries actually that I like. Okay, oops. Any questions so far about it? Is it clear for everyone? It's getting more clear what it is, because this is what we are gonna actually plant here. A question? Okay, so this is another example. Sorry, yes.
What plants can bring nitrogen fixtures?
So food, a lot of things actually.
The Fabaceae family in general.
Thank you.
Sorry?
It's a Latin family of plants called Fabaceae.
Aha.
And
so actually,
like beans, peas, Floriacacia.
Yes. I just want to translate it in English. Okay.
Like chickpeas.
Soybeans. Can you share plants that are not native to your land?
Now I'm looking for it, but for example in the Hungarian Fekete Nadai too, it's a lot of herbs.
That's why I was curious. Can you use, for example,
Yes, you need to check them. Not all comfrey. Yes, comfrey is Fekete Nadai too. It's actually comfrey is one of the most commonly used nitrogen fixer and chop and drop plant and herb in the permaculture gardens and food forest, because it just grows so quickly and it's useful for so many things. So you can make tea, cream, everything out of it, and it contains a lot of nutrients. So they make this compost tea, so they can just water the plants with it. Comfrey. Yes, it's written. Okay, I can write it down. But it's in Hungarian, it's Fekete Nadai too.
Okay. Comfrey.
Yeah.
This is M.
This is M, yeah.
What does it mean?
It's the plant that permaculture gardens and food forests use a lot as companion plant. It's a herb, but you can find naturally in a lot of places in Hungary as well. And I think everywhere in East Okay, just another illustration basically about the apple tree, and you can see that garlic can go everywhere in your raised beds or around the fruit trees because it's just a really good pest repellent. And actually, one of these plants that you can see here, you can be found in this garden. Okay, so you will identify the plants here. So as many as you can. So one of them, I identified it and already, and I found one of these here.
Sorry, comfrey is chop and drop.
Comfrey is chop and drop, and also herb, useful herb, and also it's a dynamic accumulator, so it has a very deep root that brings up nutrition, good ground cover as well, so it's good for everything. Okay, and also like just quickly, but it's very important. So this is the most important about the food forest, so we need to go through it because this is how we build it up. The companion plants in raised beds or vegetable gardens, same way how it works in a bigger scale in a food forest with a fruit tree. So we choose our main vegetable. In this example, the tomato. Okay, and this tomato has several companion planting. And because the vegetables are much more sensitive, because they are annual plants, much more sensitive than the trees. If you plant them together with some type of other vegetables, that can be actually damaging. Okay, so they can be harmful to each other. Usually, your companion planting is neutral, but there are some very beneficial ones, and there are some harmful ones. And there is actually usually a list that shows that what's good for each other and what doesn't match with each other. So here the tomatoes, actually if you put basil besides the tomato is going to taste like a little bit basil. Okay? And also with a little bit, if you put onion or garlic, everything is going to be a little bit like aromatic. Okay? Let's just say that. Also, marigolds, for example, I just give you as an example because we don't have a lot of time to discuss these things. But marigolds, another really good flowers on the raised beds among vegetables that can be pest repellent and büdöske and körömvirág magyarul. Okay? So those are very good ones with everything in raised beds because they have such a nice aroma. It's called smelly flower in Hungarian, so but it has such a smell that actually repellents insects that we don't want in the gardens. But it attracts, because it's beautiful, it attracts bees and other kind of pollinators which we want in the garden. So this is why how companion planting works. Repel the things that you don't want and attract things that you want. Is it clear so far? I know it's a lot of information. Yeah.
Can I give just a quick tip?
Yes.
There is a website. It's called the Old Farmer's Almanac, and in that site you can see the companions of which plant. You know that?
I actually put you don't need to, like, it's just an example how it looks like. So they are the main things that you usually put into the vegetable gardens. And the green one shows that, oh, they are beneficial besides each other, so you don't need to remember. It's, I think, decades of experience is to remember or memorize them. So you can just follow this and cheat and just check it all the time. And the red ones that I really don't like each other because they have, so usually why they don't like each other, what do you think? Why two plants cannot be next to each other? Or they can be, but it's not really good. What do you think? Yes?
Because, for example, with the tomatoes, the garbage will take too much nutrition from the floor, and the tomatoes will not have enough space, or there is too much competition between the plants.
So exactly, so one of the reasons, because they use the same kind of nutrition from the soil, so there is competition, which one is gonna grow and which one is gonna die. So that's the one thing. If you are doing a nice companion planting, they use different kind of nutrients from the soil, so everything has enough nutrients. What is the other reason why we shouldn't plant? Exactly, exactly. The diseases. So if they have the same kind of diseases, it can be fungal, it can be virus, anything. Then, like in a monoculture, even if the species are different, but they belong to the same family, then it's just gonna infect each other. So yeah, it's gonna be invasive.